Welcome to Tanked Up, the podcast all about video games and excellent craft beer. I'm Ben and Aadil, and this week I'm joined by Aadil Kurji.
Hello.
Hey dude, how are you?
Not too bad. How about yourself?
I'm good, thank you. I'm good. So, as with every week, we're going to drink some beers. And we're going to talk about some video games.
What do you got on deck?
I'm drinking 2 beers this week from the same brewery. In the last episode, I chatted about going down to Exmouth
Right.
for a little caravan holiday. And the craft beer pub that we ended up in actually had their own little microbrewery
cool.
on site. So these 2 beers are from Crossed Anchors Brewing. I still can't remember the name of the pub, but it's down in Exmouth. The first I'm going to go for is called 3 Seas Gold, which is a golden ale. And the second one is called North Star Spiced Ale. I thought the spiced ale might be a little more heavy in flavour, so I thought I'd go for that one second. How about you, Aadil?
I've got, in true Alex Malpass fashion, I've got 2 IPAs.
Nice.
I've got the Muskoka Brewery unfiltered IPA called Mad Tom, 6.4%. Muskoka's in, the brewery's in a small town in Ontario. Nice classy little label.
Nice, that's good.
You can see Mad Tom right there.
Yeah.
Excellent podcasting, yeah. And then I was given this by a house guest from Howe Sound Brewing, which, where is Howe Sound? BC, British Columbia, so the Pacific side of Canada. And it's it is also, it's the Devil's Elbow IPA. And it is a full liter at 6%. Oh, yeah, it is a quart. It is a quart of beer. And it has 68 IBUs. Its color is amber. Wow, we might have to actually take a picture of this, because the amount of information is on this is kind of incredible. It won the bronze Canadian award and the silver winner in the North American award of beer. It even has a picture of 3 pint glasses saying 3 glasses of glory in every bottle.
Nice.
So I guess my 2 beers equals 4 beers.
A lot more than I'm having. The 2 Crossed Anchors Brewery bottles are 500ml bottles. This first one, this 3 Seas Golden Ale, is only 4.3%. It is a nice golden colour, quite opaque.
Is it? Sorry, it was a golden ale?
Yes, yeah.
It also looks like it might be unfiltered, because it's so opaque.
It is unfiltered. It's got a couple of little bits floating around inside of it. That's okay, that's fine. Not quite as large as the part we had floating in our Tempest.
Oh fuck! I forgot about that.
A few weeks ago.
Having said that, this is my unfiltered IPA.
Wow, that's really clear. Completely different to what I've got.
Yeah, it's like apple juice colored, and even the head is sort of very small. It's like apple juice with a splash of tonic water thrown in.
Nice.
Very sweet. I shouldn't have said apple, because now we have a sweet apple on the nose. Not a strong hoppiness. So, wait, there it is. Slight copper on the nose, but not a lot. Mostly it's that sweetness. Oh, that's a good IPA.
Yeah?
Oh, yeah. They clearly didn't dry hop at all, really.
All in the flavour.
Yeah, and then the slight hoppy note, the nose, matches almost perfectly to this wonderful taste. It's, I'd say it comes in strong. The copperiness, the bitter hoppiness is sort of, it's a thick flavor, but it doesn't last long.
Nice.
It doesn't punch you in the face, but you're like, oh, this is good.
Yeah,
And then it sort of quickly dissipates. It still lingers a little, but it's a sort of a very refreshing. It's just a very refreshing first sip, and not a lot to the finish at all.
Nice. I mean, this Golden Ale, it's got quite a hoppy nose to it. Not huge, and it's got quite a not a hugely bitter taste, but you do get that within the flavour as well. But I'm getting a lot of citrus from it, both in the taste and in the smell. It's nice so far. I thought these would be a little more. I don't know why I thought they would be. I thought they'd be a little more traditionally English, a bit more like a bitter,
right,
rather than sort of like a craft ale as such. But no, this is very nice. Quite malty as well.
So I've been in the basement for a bit, and nothing, and no attention paid to me. And now, as soon as I start podcasting, both of the large felines are literally like there's one right by my feet and one right beside me. They really are the podcasts. Like
they are definitely. Unlike Perry, who comes in, makes a noise, and then buggers off somewhere else. And
he's just like, I've been on the podcast now. I don't have to stick around.
Exactly. My fame. It's done. Right. Why don't you start us off with the game, Aadil? What have you been playing this week?
Sure. I haven't played a lot, actually, because I played the FF15 demo.
Okay.
Tech demo, engine demo. I talked a little bit about it on the Out of Lives Roundtable Spectacular.
Yep.
And I hadn't finished it. I finished it now. It turns out I was like 4.5 minutes away from finishing it. But then I drove up to St. John on the weekend, and so where Catherine's working right now, and the internet there was really shoddy. I did try and test on the Mac PS4 Remote Play, because before I tested it in the house, like as in 1.5 meters away from the PlayStation and 2.5 meters away from the Wi-Fi access point.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't work. The internet was it just kept complaining that the internet was too slow.
Okay.
Which was interesting. I sort of hadn't thought about minimum internet. I mean, obviously it makes sense that there is some sort of minimum threshold, but I'm sort of used to ubiquitous Wi-Fi being of a certain level where, like, if I can stream Netflix, I should be able to do whatever, right? Like, but apparently not, which totally makes sense. I mean, it's better to do that than have a really deprecated service, right?
Yeah, completely. Have you tried, while you were there, you didn't try Remote Play on any other devices?
I tried it on the Vita as well. Same thing. Same thing.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's definitely was the internet that was the bottleneck.
Yeah. It's not just this new Remote Play on sort of PC and Mac's service. It was just the internet in general in that area. Okay. Yeah. Fair enough. But have you used Remote Play much since you've been back?
Well, the problem is I don't
need to
leave the home. I dissertate from home.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I work from Canada for my UK PhD. But and of course, my main PC is attached to the projector, as is the PS4. So I'll crib my own line and say the only reason I would use PC Remote Play is because I didn't want to push a button on the receiver.
Yeah.
Having said that, I think once I get into the swing of things in the office, I would probably play on like my Mac in the office, like maybe around a Rocket League in the middle of a work day where I'm actually working. Yeah,
that seems fair. I haven't tried it on my PC yet. Only because you need to, I believe you need to have Windows 10 or Windows 8 for it to be able to run. And currently I'm running 7. So I've got coursework due in a week's time. So I didn't fancy upgrading to 10 just to try out Remote Play, to then find that
you've ruined
that I've ruined all the other software on my PC, and I wouldn't have been able to do any of my coursework, which would have been a massive fail. So yeah, I'm waiting.
That's
a little
fair.
While.
I will say that Windows 10 has been really seamless on all devices I've put it on, including an iMac and a MacBook Air in boot camp, because I just want to put things on things. It turns out tech is my hobby in a very strong sense.
Yeah.
I like fiddling, although I don't own a fiddle.
Well,
but if I did, I bet if I picked up the violin, I'm guessing it would be an electric violin.
More than likely. You can probably find some kind of plug-in for GarageBand to be able to play around with it. Nice. So what did you think about the end of the Final Fantasy 15 demo? Very different to the rest of it, really. Yeah,
I mean, it finally gave a taste for what combat would be like. One, I suck balls at that combat system. Like,
really?
The amount of times I got hit for badly timed dodges before, it was like, push the triangle button to jump on the thing, and basically now that you're hanging from a post, you can just, that's the win button, you just have to push it 4 times kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah.
But it was weird that you could equip fire, but it was a bottle and you had 1 bottle.
Was it only 1?
Or whatever, but like it was limited, but then when you were out, it didn't say out or anything, and it's still in your little diagram had like hammer on top, on the left was a sword or whatever, right? And then there was the fire, and the fire icon stayed. So it's like, oh, I didn't really realize because I just became this guy, so I used fire once to try it out, and then it was like, and then nothing sort of indicated to me that this was no longer a thing I could do, and I kept trying. I'm like, am I screwing up my buttons? Like, what's going on? Oh, it turns out I just couldn't do that anymore.
Yeah, I seem to remember that there was a slightly odd way of when you're doing, even when you were the younger version of the character and you had the firework and a couple of other sort of spells that were almost throwable items.
Yeah, that's basically what they are.
They have a slightly odd way of aiming and throwing. I seem to remember.
Yeah, I burnt my fire. I burnt my fire. I did not do a single point of damage. One, because I was just trying it out and thought it was fire, this spell. And I'm like, well, and I had MP, and there was something that restored MP, but I didn't seem to have an ability that used MP.
Yeah, I wonder whether in the main game you're going to start to have spells.
Yeah,
and then might have, as they were in the demo, items and sort of as throwable objects which also do sort of spell damage, similar to if you're able to do a spell.
Or like you have throwable objects which you need to use MP to imbue with the element or something like that, right?
Yeah, possibly.
That's been done in games before, and it's actually an interesting mechanic. But I felt, I mean, again, it's not my forte, but because it's not quite third person in the way that I'm used to. The camera controls were a little clunky for my taste, but mostly I couldn't. I felt clunky, the action battle. Also, like, I had the urge to like jump at the guy and then swing 4 or 5 times in a row, and that just doesn't really do anything. Like, you hit him once and then you sort of drop down to the ground and then you do your same generic swing.
Yeah.
Like, for sort of an action-oriented, where you've got, like, dynamic dodging and stuff, it's really odd that you have there's no sort of flow to your attacks if you try and chain them. It's just like, swing, swing, swing.
Yeah, you sort of expect almost like a juggle button or something. I can't remember whether it was in 13 that you were able to sort of juggle them, throw them up into the air, and then do attacks on them whilst they were airborne and chain them together. But this did seem a little bit clunkier
than
that, and a bit more stymied. And you just got that one attack off. And that was sort of it. You just rinsed and repeated the same sort of dodge a couple of times, try and hit, dodge a couple of times, try and hit.
I mean, part of the reason why I had to get healed by carbuncles because I was trying to do different things, and even the sort of fancy-looking sword versus the other sword, you sort of lose the ability to have a hammer, even though you've just learned how to. Like, the hammer does a lot of damage, but is slow in the little kid version, and then you just get 2 swords. One's larger and slightly slower, but not by much. And it wasn't even clear how much the difference in damage was because of sort of the size of the enemy's health and the fact that the health bar was sort of the same size as all the other health bars you saw. Sort of felt it discouraged me about the game rather than encouraged me.
Yeah, that's fair. I think we mentioned it on the last episode that previous Final Fantasy games have all been hugely menu based within even their combat. You pick the enemy you want to attack, you choose what you're going to do to them, and even in 13, which was a bit more action based, you were still picking for your party what to do, when to do it, who would do what. You could set AI.
Yeah.
Sort of almost bots to be able to run through what they were going to do. So it'd be interesting to see how they handle that within Final Fantasy 15, which I feel is probably a little more action orientated than 13.
Well, that's
Seems
what
like
they
it should be a little
claim.
faster.
Yeah.
But party management is going to be really interesting.
Well, and like these sort of these disposable throwable items, that whole menu system to like swap, like even when I was the kid and wandering around, and I swapped from firework to downpour or whatever that throwing rain thing was. It still was kind of clunky, and I was sort of thinking when I realized that fire was non-renewable. Yeah, that's some sort of anti-car combustion engine claim. I was like, wow, but that menu is really shit. Like, if I was in the middle of a battle and I wanted to switch to some other thing, I would not like doing that over and over and over again. Which, as we know in Final Fantasy games, your battles are over and over. Like, it's a grindy game series. It's just usually the plot and not even the strategy. Usually the plot carries you through, or you just like this type of game. It's grindy, but doesn't. The well-planned ones don't make you feel like you're just killing for the sake of killing. To get level ups.
It also brings us back to sort of a point last week as well, which we were making about the Division, where we were talking about the difference in being able to choose weapons, and how even though you might run around with 3 or 4 weapons within your inventory, and you might change between sort of your secondary weapon quite a lot. Going from a sniper rifle to a shotgun or something.
Right.
Going through the menu system is actually quite clunky, and isn't. I suppose whether it's made clunky in a way because they only want you to have very swift access to 2 weapons, so you have
3.
to. Well, 3 weapons with your sidearm.
I use the sidearm a bunch.
Yeah, I've started using the sidearm quite a lot as well. But
Sorry.
it does seem quite clunky to be able to change between more than that amount of weapons for different situations. But you would have thought that something like Final Fantasy, which has always been a very menu-based game, would have very fluid, slick menus to be able to run through. And like we said, they've still got some time to polish and to refine.
Also, I totally get what you're saying about the 3D modeling being subpar. The hair and fur was awful for a modern game. Very sort of clearly they almost decided to go and animate every strand of hair on his head, and then realized they couldn't quite, but they retained that sort of textured look. But then things didn't move. But also, especially on Carbuncle, his coat was super jagged looking,
completely.
And you're like, whoa. And I know part of that might be because of this sort of. It feels to me like they tried to do a lot of hair work and then realized that not as many people care, and it's so much work, and they downgraded what they were doing with hair. But even with that in mind, it was an eyesore. Like his edges were an eyesore, and the model was good looking. I didn't even mind the character, although it was very what's that thing from Link? Little spirity sprite thing from old
Navi.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah. Hey, listen.
Yeah, thank you. That is a spot on impression.
It was very good, wasn't it? Yeah, I thought so.
I didn't really enjoy the character, but I was like, really, this is what you're showing off?
And especially as we talked about, with it being a tech demo as such, and it being more, or it came across that it was more trying to showcase what the engine could do, and all of these different lighting effects in the day and night cycle, the weather effects and things like that, to then have shittier, jagged, torn, sort of tearing character models where different textures and things clipped through. Just a bit sort of subpar, really.
I thought the older version looked better, but that's also because he had like the typical anime style spiky hair, which is sort of already in clumps, so you're not expecting strands, and they weren't drawing strands. But so I don't know. I think, and hilariously enough, this morning Square Enix emailed me suggesting I buy the Deluxe Super Edition. It's like, well, no, actually. One, I don't buy Deluxe Super Editions. And two, I just played your demo, and I might wait until it's cheaper now.
Yeah, definitely. I've been thinking the same sort of thing. Now it's sort of sat for a little bit, and I've had a bit of time to think about the game. And I've seen a few more bits from it and heard a little bit more chatter about what's to come.
I'd like to play the first demo.
Episode Dusk Sky?
Yeah. That came with Type 0 HD or whatever.
Yes. Yeah.
Except it only on the consoles, because I actually own that game on PC.
It's been in the Steam sale, almost every Steam sale that pops up. So,
hence why I own it, but I didn't get a Magic Secret code. Because, of course, they didn't make a PC demo.
No, and it would be very interesting to try that demo because they have taken feedback from it and have suggested that they have gone in and changed some of the elements from episode Dusk Sky, and it actually, I believe, received a patch.
Oh.
To update some of those changes that people had been sort of lobbying for almost and suggesting that they make. It seems slightly odd that a demo would receive a patch, but I suppose they, again, want feedback. It's an ever-evolving engine. They want to know how the mechanics work and how people think about them. Good idea. Yeah,
this totally not a Square Enix style move.
No, not at all.
So I applaud that. I mean, who knows how that comes out of the Square Enix filter black box, but I think I really enjoy how there seems to be more attention being paid to the consumer in the development process. I think, like Epic Games is a great example. They not only have their closed systems for Paragon been months and months in alpha and huge amount of huge amount of interaction on the forums, the closed forums. But also Unreal Tournament, the next Unreal Tournament, is literally the fans are calling all of the shots. And it's free. I think I talked about this, how I have no idea how they're going to monetize it. But again, you can download the Epic Games launcher and download the latest version of Unreal Tournament and play it. And if you have a strong opinion, or even a weak one, you can just jump on the forums and say, here's my strong/weak opinion. Yeah, and I think this is the way forward, especially considering, like, video gaming has sort of escaped the E3 culture that's that's sort of been the bread and butter for decades, or at least one in a bit. In that it was all about the video game industry feeding itself and the journalists as well, but like the actual consumers only having the opinion at the very end, and of course with their dollars, pounds, euros, Deutschmarks, never mind. But I actually found one of those.
Nice.
and a couple lira and a franc. I was like, why do I have these?
Just in the currency drawer.
I have a little bucket where I put all the random coins I get, and I say bucket, it's actually an old piggy bank made in the shape. It's like a wooden loonie, which is our $1 coin.
Right.
And it has everything but Canadian currency in it. Anyway, so I think because like E3 isn't as big of a thing, and the internet has gotten to a point where the big names in gaming, journalism, quote unquote, gaming communication if you don't like the idea,
Mm.
are people, regular
Yeah.
people with doing their Let's Plays, your PewDiePies, your NerdCubes, your etceteras.
Yes, yeah.
And because of that, these people have their own followings, and you just can't ignore the actual gamer anymore in the same way you could when all the spectacle, all the effort was pointed at a very niche population who was it was this almost positive feedback loop type culture.
Yeah, and I suppose that sort of stems, as you said, from the internet as well. When you had sort of print media, you only got maybe one or two articles, or you maybe only read one article about a game a couple of months or a month or so before.
Oh, I just look at the pictures.
Yeah, and that was about it. It was someone's impression. Whereas now you're seeing alpha footage videos, beta footage videos, people putting up their impressions as soon as something is released. People get it a few days before, and with embargoes and things, people can chuck stuff up the day before. A game is actually released, if that's when all the review embargoes get taken down. So it's a very different market now. So for developers to actually listen to consumers is a very good thing. But then when does it become a bad thing? When do they change so much because of what consumers say? It almost takes us back to Baldur's Gate. Had they have put in a patch to have changed the characters because of all the negative feedback they have had from it.
Oh, I would be pissed.
That would have, in our eyes at least, that would have been a bad thing.
Yeah, I guess it's sort of that. I think when we talked about Baldur's Gate, I mentioned how gaming is a larger industry than Hollywood now, and so because of that, the accountants and the executives are more involved with potential harm to poor views of the customer. And I'm glad that Baldur's Gate didn't result in what you just described, but you could easily see it. I mean, but it's also sort of this is the same reason why it took. I realized I said this about Quantum Break like a week after I said this about Superhot, and they're both riffs on the Max Payne bullet time. But it takes an indie developer or classically we do our thing very infrequently and very much our own way, Remedy, to sort of innovate in the third-person shooter genre, because it's basically been sort of modern warfare-y tactical cover shooting, and there's not a lot of innovation outside of on the actual combat, right? Like The Division's a super innovative game because it's taking that standard approach. Not to say that there's not been refinements on how well it's executed and how the flow, and adding MMORPG elements to it.
Yes,
along with a very interesting story.
Yeah, I mean, The Division is almost a mix of genres. It's sort of a very loot-driven RPG-esque third-person cover-based shooter. So they've taken sort of the core mechanic of third-person cover-based shooting. They've added in a very loot-driven RPG system to build you up through that. It's not like you're what's another third-person cover-based shooter. That's a very long-winded way of saying something.
Yeah.
Something like Uncharted doesn't have those progression systems in. You don't upgrade yourself. You might get slightly better weapons throughout the game because you're fighting harder enemies.
I was going to say, but it's a very linear catch-up.
Yeah, exactly. You don't have a progression system in which you can branch off and spec in different classes, almost, which The Division has tried to bring in. So,
so I guess, where did we start this on?
Final Fantasy 15.
Oh, right. Last word on Final Fantasy would be meh.
Yeah.
Meh to...
Yeah, I think mine was pretty similar when I discussed it.
I have a new appreciation for your comments. I wish I had waited because I usually listen to the episodes Not out of narcissism, partially maybe out of narcissism. But honestly, sometimes I can't remember what we talk about. And I actually don't like the sound of my recorded voice, so that part's always painful because I usually talk too much. He says on a ramble. But I wish I had waited for my till after I did the demo, but actually did my re-listen before I finished the demo.
Right.
Because of the comments I remember you making, they all sort of started to ring a bit truer. I got a better sense of what you were saying.
Yeah.
And I think you were spot on. It's just... Although, I will say that on the Out of Lives crossover, I think it was Adam who talked about how he liked the fact that it was a tech demo.
Yeah.
He liked that he's not a Final Fantasy guy, and he liked that it wasn't sort of sticking you in the middle of a plot. It was saying, this is how the game feels. And I realized then that it's actually not a bad move considering they're not doing a standard Final Fantasy.
Yeah.
So all
definitely.
the like preparing all the FF nerds for this won't be menus is a good idea. Having said that, you could still do that on a slice of plot version, but this sort of really got you to play with all the different things, including how apparently combat with sort of minions is complete garbage.
Minions?
Well, like the little blue guys you fight as the kid.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Hold circle forever and you will attack. Apparently you can also defend, but why bother? Because no one ever attacks you before you hit them on the head with a hammer and they die instantly. And you don't even have to do anything but rotate the camera and you'll automatically kill the next guy. I found that combat very boring.
I didn't enjoy that combat. But we should move on. I'm ready to open up my second beer, which I shall do. It is another Crossed Anchors Brewing beer. It is the North Star Spiced Ale, 5.5%.
So it's spiced like the North Star?
Well, I assume if we were to go to the North Star and we had suits that could deflect the heat that the North Star gives out, and we mined it, there'd be spices. Maybe. I don't know.
I think the only spice you're finding in space is surrounded by sandworms.
Definitely. Ooh. This beer is a lot darker than my last beer. The what was that called? The 3 C's. The Golden Ale. Was a golden ale. It was very light in colour. This is really, really dark.
Holy shibbles.
It almost looks, because of the slight carbonation it's got to it, there's not a huge amount of head on the pour that I've done. It almost looks like a pint of Coke.
I was going to say, it looks cola-esque.
Yeah.
A little creamier, but not by much.
Oh, that's very sweet on the nose.
Oh,
no. We talked about sort of... you had a winter saison a few episodes ago, didn't you? And I seem to remember that was spiced, and we kind of derided the idea of sort of winter beers being sort of clovey.
Yeah, clovey and like cloves, cardamom,
a little bit of orange.
Chai spices plus some citrus. That thing they call pumpkin spice in like lattes at Starbucks. That has no pumpkin in it.
That's this beer.
Oh, you poor bastard.
I'm getting a hell of a lot of clove, a little bit of ginger. It's very. It's got that spicy sweetness to it in the nose. Taste-wise, we shall see.
I'm going to start pouring my IPA now that I've dribbled the last bit of...
Cool. Yeah, you did spill that down yourself a little bit. Wow, that taste is really clovey. That's not... I'm not getting much malt. I'm not getting a hoppy flavour. There's not quite any bitterness to it.
Does it taste like beer at this point?
Let me have another go. Let me see.
Because that's always my problem with these wintry, seasonally things.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't at all. It's almost I don't know whether it's just the bottle that I've got. I can't imagine that it is.
You're being very charitable all of a sudden.
I'm trying to be generous. It almost tastes like a flat Coke, but a slightly sweetened, little cloved, spiced.
I was going to say, Coke. I don't remember Coke tasting very clovey.
No, it's got those almost winter spices in it, but it's got that flat sort of nature to it.
So, are you saying is it like the sort of the texture that's more like the Coke rather than the taste, or is it?
The texture's more like a flat Coke, but taste-wise, it is exactly the same as I got on the nose. It's very sweet, but it's those sweet spices, the cloves, gingers, cinnamon, perhaps.
Is it cinnamon or is it nutmeg?
Ooh, it says on the bottle, it's got crystal and chocolate malts, and then cinnamon, ginger, allspice, and cloves. So there you go.
You missed the allspice.
I did miss the allspice. The one thing I didn't get. What is allspice? Just allspice?
It's a mixture that actually I'm pretty sure involves cinnamon. I looked this up before because the recipe required it. And Catherine's got this lovely thing called the Substitution Bible, which she grew up. Her mom has it, and she got it as a gift when she moved out years and years ago. And it tells you how you don't have this ingredient. Well, use these. And because of that, the first time I made fish and chips, we made a fucking great tartar sauce that wasn't tartar sauce.
Quality. That's a quality present.
Oh, it's a great book. You can Amazon it. It's called The Substitution Bible. And we had to make allspice, and it was definitely cinnamon was in it. So
yeah.
Excuse me.
Nice. How's your second beer?
I just poured it. You can see it's a little translucent, very coppery colored. I poured it a couple minutes ago, and you can see that the head is small, but it just sits there. Mm-hmm. I think last week I also used the term from wine. It has legs in that it sort of sticks to the glass and slowly drips down.
Yeah. This
oh wow!
North Star's the same in that regard.
It's very it's got a honey sweetness.
Nice.
With a slight maltiness.
That sweet honey flavour is very good.
I really like it. That in a beer. It's how do I describe it? Yeah, it's like a mix between a light malt and like a really fresh honey.
Nice. Seems like your second beer is a little bit better than my second beer at the moment.
It tastes so sweet.
Yeah, too sweet.
Too sweet.
Perhaps.
So it's hard to tell. I'm probably gonna have to comment a little bit later because I have two IPAs on the tongue. Feels like it is a euphemism for something. But yeah, it has almost no finish to this.
Okay.
And the first thing I tasted was like a. How do I describe this? It's so if you have sugar and then you have icing sugar.
Yeah.
A sort of step up of sweetness and sort of concentration. It's like sort of a sweet standard sweetness you find in a beer, and then that step up. So it doesn't taste like icing sugar, but it's relatively sweeter in that way.
Yes, yeah.
Because my beer analogies are always so straightforward. But
completely.
You should tell me about a game you've been playing.
I will.
That's not the other game that we talked about that you've been playing, or the other game that we talked about that you've been playing.
Yeah. So the game that I've played around with a little bit this last week, well, because I've been doing coursework, I haven't had a huge amount of time to game. But I jumped into Dead Star, which is one of the free PlayStation Plus games this month.
Oh, I just downloaded that.
It is a twin-stick MOBA.
What?
A multiplayer online battle arena game.
Yeah, that was more rhetorical.
It was. That was for the
listener.
The listener who doesn't know what a MOBA is.
And despite the fact that we've said MOBA in several episodes before and never bothered. What is it? Mobile Operative Bachelor Arena? I don't even know.
That is exactly what it is. It's just a bunch of guys looking for dates, running around hitting each other. No. So, Dead Star, you are a pilot, and you have a choice of spaceship.
Okay, so it's a ship. Okay.
Yep, to be able to move between different zones, to take over those zones, to collect points to win a match. Now, obviously, you're in a spaceship, so you've got various different weapons on the spaceships.
Is this a top-down, like Super Stardust kind of thing?
It's almost top-down. It's not quite. It's not quite top-down. It's not quite isometric. Axonometric, perhaps.
I don't even know what that is.
Axonometric's 45 degrees. It's almost isometric, which I think is about 33 degrees or something like that. Anyway, so you're in a spaceship. It's very light spaceship combat. You drive around this area. You can shoot missiles dependent on what kind of ship that you've picked. You've got lasers and various different weapons, and you have to try and take over bases within a zone to be able to conquer that zone. And the maps that I've played are comprised of, I believe, about 8 zones. You have two teams which start at either end of a map, and then you move through these zones towards each other, taking over the zones as you go to collect points to win the match.
So the zones are just sort of maps?
Yes, they're just different sections within the maps.
And is there a load time between, or is it fairly...
No, it's one map, so there's no load times.
Can you shoot across zones?
You can shoot across zones.
Just to get an idea of what it looks like.
Yeah. So when you start a match, you have 3 ships available to you. You can pick any of those ships. You normally have a light ship, an intermediate sort of ship, and a heavy ship. The light ships travel very quick, but they don't have very good firepower. The heavy ships don't travel very fast, but they pack a punch, and it's okay. I've enjoyed the few games.
This is called Three Bearsing, by the way.
Three Bearsing.
Yeah, there's no Goldilocks, but there's 3 bears.
Yeah. You have a little bit of choice within the ships that you choose, the light and medium and heavy ships. I think there's 9 ships in total. So you've got 3 light ships to choose from, 3 medium ships. And you go into a match with a loadout of your ships. And yeah, it's all right. Combat's not fantastic.
Twin-stick shooter.
It's a twin-stick shooter.
How chaotic does it get? Because I feel like that's sort of the home of the twin-stick shooter is chaotic to bullet hell, I feel like. If it's anything less than chaotic...
So I found that normally you can respawn. If you've captured an area, you can respawn within that area.
Okay, that makes sense.
So you can move... Yeah, you can progress through the map and get closer to the action. But I found that you get times where you're flying around and you don't know where anybody is. You're just making your way towards the next area to take over. You don't really encounter anyone until you get to the space station within the next area, within the next zone to take over. Then suddenly a hell of a lot of people rush in and kill you very quickly. I've tried to team up with a few people and set out almost in small sort of radio. Well, it's all multiplayer.
Yeah, is there any single player element?
There is a tutorial which takes you through the basics of gameplay. There's also an element of upgrading. So your ship upgrades through the experience you get, which you gain through getting kills. You can also upgrade the bases, so it's harder for the opposite team to take them over once you have them in your possession.
Now, I know you've only played a little, but if you take over a base,
yes,
do you retain the upgrades in your favor?
I'm not sure. I think I very swiftly moved on with the group that I was with to try and take over the next base. You don't stick around to...
I was just curious if you had noticed.
Such. Yeah, I'm not sure. But the main multiplayer I've had really was I was in a heavy ship, quite a attacking heavy ship, so lots of missiles that recharged very quickly, some very punching lasers on it, and we were flying around with a ship which had a health bubble around it. and if you were within the vicinity of the ship, your health regenerated. So it was almost this ship with myself and another player in the same ship as me, flanking it, flying around, taking over areas, and very swiftly dispatching the lone sort of ship that we came into contact with.
Multiplayer game on the internet where if you have a modicum of teamwork, suddenly you're dominating?
Suddenly we were overrun by 5 ships and very, very quickly dispatched because they, realised that we were taking over these areas quite quickly.
They figured out your game and then...
They did. Yeah. And so there's a slight sense of strategy to it.
Oh, good.
And if we had a team of, 5 or 6 players, I think they can get up to 8 players a side, perhaps. Maybe more than that. The amount of people that were playing online, or the teams that I was thrust into, almost only ever got to 5 or 6 a side. But yeah, you if you had a team, I think you could be very good at this game, you would be with any MOBA. If you had a team and you had that strategy, you all took on different roles. You could wipe out quite a lot of people, because most of the people that I've come up against, aren't groups of players playing together. They're individual people that have just been thrust with other people.
And they don't bother to try and...
Exactly, to try and play this game. I mean, I was playing without a microphone, so I wasn't discussing strategy or tactics.
I have played this type of game without a microphone. And yeah, it takes a little bit of nuance, but you can still communicate tactics / support someone who clearly is doing a good thing, and then you develop a rapport. I'm not suggesting that it's super easy, but I am suggesting that it's still rarely done.
Yeah,
rarely attempted is my problem, I guess.
Yes, completely. That other person has to understand what you're doing, that you're backing them up. And I had a couple of situations like that where I found another ship hovering on the edge of a hostile zone, who very clearly wanted to go in to attack the base, but because they were on their own, and the base that they were going to attack, as we found out once we'd gone into the area, had been upgraded with a few sort of sentry turrets and a couple of mines surrounding it.
I know you said mine, but I heard mime, and the mental picture was amazing. Sorry,
just continue. A mime in space, just putting up a box. You can't get through this box. You can't get past it.
And I'm thinking spaceship scale, so there's literally just tiny mime just sort of floating around some sort of base.
That would be the ultimate defense, but alas, it was not. It was a mine. But yeah, this guy was hovering on the edge of an area. I turned up, and as soon as I turned up, he started to move towards the base. And I'm thinking, we're not going to take this with just the 2 of us. We need to hold back. So I stayed back. He drifted out of my screen and very quickly came back. So he got the idea that we needed to wait for somebody else. And, 30 seconds later, somebody else turned up, and we went in, and we were able to take over this base, because the rest of the opposition were at a different base, trying to either take that over or defend what they had. But yeah, so as you say, with these games, you can get a little bit of communication going with your
actions.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So, I mean, it's fun. I've not played a huge amount of it. It would be good to play with a few people.
I was going to say,
a few friends, and get a little team, even if it's only 2 or 3 of you. As long as you can form some kind of squad as such.
Well, I think
that backs up each other. It would be be fun.
In the heyday of my multiplayer first-person shootering, where it was CS Source and Team Fortress 2, way more Team Fortress 2. This was back when you had to pay for the damn game, and there were 0 hats.
Zero
hats. Like, the releases that you waited for were the Valve-made videos about a character. But I played with one mate all the time.
Yeah.
And somewhere between 40 and 60% of the time, because I think it's closer to 40, but I remember 60. That's probably rose-colored glasses. But a other people cottoned on to what we were doing and sort of joined our vague tactics / noticed that we were doing a certain thing and then started doing their own thing that was at least not against our thing and usually an attempt at complementary, despite the fact that we weren't on some sort of TeamSpeak server because people just... At least then, he says, pretending like it's not still a thing. People aren't worth listening to. There's only so many times you can hear the word faggot.
That's very true.
Before you're like, how many fires is this guy setting up?
Yeah. Well, that's why you mute everybody as soon as you go into a Call of Duty lobby.
I don't even think... Yeah.
Your standard first move as soon as you join a Call of Duty lobby, just mute everybody. But yeah, I don't know. With Dead Star, there were with the PlayStation, you have your headphones that you get with it, which has a built-in microphone. A lot of people have gaming headsets which have microphones on, and there were a few people in Dead Star talking. It's a good example. A few people talking, but they weren't really saying anything sense as such. They were just giving shit and almost giving a very poor running commentary of what was happening. It wasn't, hey guys, let's go and do this. I think if there was 3 of us, we could take this over. Let's go. It was, oh, we've just lost that. But yeah, I can see that. There is a small mini-map which highlights the colour of the team which has won that area. I can see that has been taken over. You don't need to tell me.
I have a tangential question. I know, shocking.
Yeah.
Do you think this type of quote-unquote commentary has increased due to the popularity of things like Let's Plays? Or do you think it's just knobs stating the obvious because
I think it probably has increased. Yes. I mean, it's no better than it was previously before the phenomenon of Let's Plays and podcasting and things. When people just chatted shit in lobbies, I think it's almost the same level of shit that's that's spoken. But yeah, it has increased slightly.
I meant specifically on this sort of description-based rambling rather than talking shit in general.
Yeah, I think, yes, definitely. And I don't think that's because people are recording their gameplay
I just mean
over. I think they just got into a habit of commentating as
That's
such.
what I meant, yeah.
Yes. Because they're not professional commentators.
Like ourselves.
Like ourselves, exactly. They, don't do a very good job of it. And it's something that...
they don't understand that editing is an integral part of this. I feel like putting like a sound bite or something right there.
Yeah.
But I'm too lazy of an editor.
Let's Dead Stars. Yeah, I mean, if it's the free game on PlayStation Plus, give it a go. You might enjoy it. You might not. If not, it's fine to play for. I think the matches lasted about 15 minutes.
Oh, that was fine.
So I've played maybe an hour and 15. I played about 4. About 5 matches. I think I played.
Okay.
So it's it's okay, but I don't think, unless I had other people to play with, that I would bother going back to it.
Fair enough. I can't say that even though I've downloaded it to my thingy, PlayStation Majigger.
Yes.
I can't say that you've made me want to turn or run the program. Yeah.
No,
I mean,
can't
maybe if we, I'm curious to see if our suspicion of 2 people working together would do a thing. But outside of that, I don't know.
Completely. And there's a lot of games like that. There's a lot of games that come out which are okay.
I mean, this is one of the reasons why it's on PS Plus, presumably, is because...
Well, it's that was its release date as well. When it released on PS Plus, that was the first time that it had released on PlayStation 4. It wasn't available previously to that, and I believe it released on Steam at the same time.
Oh.
So that was its worldwide release as such.
That's interesting.
So, yeah, that sort of gives you a little bit of insight as to the not the quality of the game, but maybe what you might get out of it as such. That it's a free game for a specific console holder. Anyway, we shall move on to our topic of the week, which I'm going to let you, Adil, chat about first.
Sure. Listeners will be shocked to find out that it's going to be about The Division. And
the game that we obviously haven't ever played.
No, which is why we're talking about it now. Specifically, we're just going to have a freeform talk about some of the larger bugs and glitches that have happened, and sort of the general reaction both by the developer, Ubisoft, and the populace at large, and just sort of talk about the state of gaming as it is, with this as sort of our window through.
Yeah.
So a couple things have happened in the Division in the last week, I should say.
Mm-hmm.
There's been all throughout April, apparently there's been a bug up until this past Tuesday's patch, which I think solved it, where a certain high-level backpack caused a glitch where you would then be locked. Like, if you had it equipped, some mysterious circumstance involving you having it equipped would then cause you to be locked out of your account. So I feel like that paved the way for people to be really irate about problems. And the big problem that happened in the past week, actually on the 12th, I think, was two things happened after the last patch. One, people's dark zone levels were set to 1.
Right.
But it turns out that's apparently a display bug, because anyone who bothered going into their character found their dark zone level was fine. But a lot of people stopped to complain and talk to the support. Well, and I can see sort of the idea of something's wrong, I'm not going to touch it. Yeah. I'm going to go ask, what should I do? Mm-hmm. So I'll give that to people. I'm less attached to my progression in games these days, where I just see if it mattered. Yep. I mean, I'm not playing it as hardcore, and if I was, level 1 billion or whatever the top is, I'd probably be a little more hesitant. But the other thing is, some people found their characters no longer existing.
Yes, I think we did we establish that this was an Xbox One problem? Because I believe it was a server issue, wasn't it?
It was a specific, I wanted to say a rogue server, but there was a specific server which malfunctioned and corrupted data, and because they, so when people logged in, the game couldn't read the corrupted data, so assumed there wasn't any data there.
Yep.
Therefore, character's not there because it's in this corrupted data. Having used to work in IT and done some disaster recovery plans, etc., and service survival stuff, what they're doing is actually, what they've done is reasonable, right? They clearly take snapshots. So the plan was
just roll back.
So what they did though was, so it wasn't everyone, right? It was only people who happened to hit the right window on the right server to lose their character. So they cross-referenced logs, identified the affected users, and they're rolling those users back.
Yep.
And so they put out a statement saying, you will lose all progress since this timestamp, because that's when we're going to reset you to. Let me see if
they did that very quickly as well, didn't they?
Yeah.
This was something that happened. The patch released maybe 2 days ago, and it was yesterday that they came out and said, this is the problem, this is the fix, we will have this dealt with. I don't believe it was dealt with yesterday. I think it was dealt with today, wasn't it?
So the big
day
thing
of recording as such. So 2 days after the problem
arose.
Well,
hold on a second. The big thing is they didn't actually say when.
Oh, okay.
They said we will deal with this soon or shortly. One of those two S words. Right. They're so ambiguous it hurts. I knew a girl like that once. So, needless to say, hopefully we'll remember to tweet out the link to the now 10 pages commentary, sort of forum posts
Forum
with
posts,
comments. Yeah. There's been mixed reactions, and I think the biggest thing people have a claim to is, I don't know when I'm going to get my character back, but also they did say that this is at the account, not the character level.
Yep.
So any progression on any character will get reset to April 12th when they do this change.
Yep.
But unfortunately, their tech support people, I'm presuming who didn't have all of the information, had told a handful of users that they know about the missing characters. They're not gone forever. They're making a fix, and it's okay to start a new character.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So,
little miscommunication.
And so you can imagine. So most IT problems are a bigger communication problem than an infrastructure problem.
Yes. Yeah.
And which is why I wanted to start out saying they did a very standard approach to dealing with it technically. Their communication clearly. I wouldn't be surprised if there was an assumption going forward, or someone said a thing before knowing really what technically was going on, and then other people heard, and that became the sort of the byline of the tech support, because that happens, right? And it turns out that it was someone speaking off the cuff that other people overheard and assumed it was the truth. However, that's really unfortunate, because then there were people who, when they found this announcement, instead of being like, oh, now I understand what's going on, we're like, well, fuck, I just spent the last 6 hours because I have nothing to do other than play Division. There's not a slag. I'm just saying that it's clearly the people who are right are the ones who've just continued playing.
I would have meant that as a slag, definitely.
Yeah, fair. Fucking kids and their games. Brr, I'm shaking my fist.
I've got washing up to do. That's how busy I am.
Right, yeah, so I guess what I'm rambling towards is this idea that the communication wasn't handled great, and so there's been some pushback at various degrees of pushback.
Yes,
Some people are saying, well, you should give us some sort of fancy item for our troubles, or some sort of compensation.
Okay, so yeah, let's roll with that. I mean, that's fine if you're PlayStation Plus and you charge a monthly fee and you are paying monthly for a service, or even you're paying monthly to an MMO where you expect that to be live, except for possibly scheduled maintenance, which you will be you'll be made aware of. You can ask for some kind of compensation for that, but for having 2 days downtime.
So some of the speculation I will say is that because the fix didn't happen right away, and the backpack problem was hot fixed. Right. People don't. One thing is, people who are commenting on this don't understand that not all fixes can be implemented the same way, especially if you're coming off of backup. You need dead time. That's just how technology works. But the suspicion is, some people are saying, well, the regular maintenance windows is Tuesdays, so am I going to have to wait 5 days in order for this to be fixed? Which I think is a reasonable thing to be cross about. But if you have to take a server down, and there's 0.1% of your population who you're trying to fix a problem for, but everyone will suffer if you take the server down, you do have to balance this. And now I'm not saying, but having said that, I do think I'd rather a proactive approach, saying, look, people, we're going to be down for an hour because people got screwed. Yeah. And, be fucking sympathetic.
Yes, completely.
And I think I personally would rather not play for an hour because they're trying to make it so that other people can play.
Mm-hmm.
But having said that, I'm also not as sort of attached to the game as some people can be.
Yeah, you do get people who this will be the game that they have bought, and the only game that possibly they have bought because that's all of the money that they have.
Or
and
they're
they
just
will
a
be
person
absolutely
who
hammering it.
Yeah.
Or they really enjoy it, and this is the game that they really want to play, and they want to spend a lot of their free time progressing through the game. That's fine, but again, yes, you have paid that original price for the game, and you expect it to work.
But
that is that's just the nature of an always online server-based game.
So I guess my question is, given that you cannot play this game at all without the servers, just because I'm not paying a monthly fee, like I'm going to be Al Pacino's lawyer here and say that I can't play the game. So even though I'm not paying a monthly fee, I bought this game. And I bought this game under this understanding that I didn't have to pay a monthly fee, but I could play this game. And you're locking me out for potentially 5 days, and you don't seem super apologetic.
Yeah.
So what's up with that?
Well,
like it's one thing to say, like, yeah, it sucks that you can't multiplayer, but, you know, whatever. Like, play Need for Speed solo campaign for a bit before you go back to the races, because you're fucked. But I literally cannot log into the game and play it.
Yeah.
So I don't care if I didn't pay a monthly fee. You sold it to me.
That's not true. That's not true. You can go in and you can play the game.
Well, no, you have no access to your character in this game.
No, that's correct. But you can create a new character and you can play the game. However, when the servers roll back, that character will essentially be lost, and you'll roll back to your original characters, which will then be available to you at whatever rollback point they have used. Okay, you're not your progressed character, but it allows you to experience the game. Okay, you're playing earlier missions you've already played, but what if why do people have alts? Because they want to experience a game in a different way. But take this opportunity to play the game slightly differently, to experience and explore what else the game had to offer to you. Yes, I can see that you've paid for this game, you expect it to work. But it does work. You just have a slightly different experience, as such.
So it's mostly the hardcore players who are complaining because the tier of people they're playing with are playing a fuck ton and out-leveling them now, right? I think I don't give a shit about that excuse. I get where you're coming from, but I just don't give a shit. And it's probably just because I'm a crotchety 30-something instead of a young teen. But I think there is something to like we said, the game is designed with MMO aspects.
Yeah.
And not everyone plays an alt. And
that's true.
I feel like saying you can play an alt is not a good alternative. But I also know that it's still a game.
Completely.
And it's still technology.
It is, and it's... You have purchased this game knowing that it is an always online game. You have that disclaimer before you play, almost, that you will be constantly referring to a server to find your data, because that is where all of your data is stored. You know that. You have purchased the game knowing that. If you put the game in without knowing that, and then you didn't read through the terms and conditions which say, this is an always online game, which needs to find your data constantly, then it's on you, man.
Yeah. Totally agree with that.
It's the nature of it. It's the nature of your purchase.
So, put yourself... I'm going to play the empathy card.
Wah.
Put yourself in the whaambulance as a person who spent a lot of time on the game, let's say you have a variable schedule, and this yesterday, today, tomorrow, and the next day are sort of days which you are looking forward to playing the game. But you're still you, right? So you are aware that sometimes technology is a bitch, and sometimes whatever. Mm-hmm. Is there anything you would fault Ubisoft for, / how would you feel? I have a certain perspective, but I'm curious what yours is.
I think they could, as I understand it, they've just told people about this through forum posts, haven't they?
Yeah.
I think, I'm not sure whether they've made any actual press releases, but had they have made this a bit more public, I imagine they're worried because this only affects maybe 1% of players.
I don't even think it's that much.
So by just leaving their responses to the forums, they're only addressing those players, so they're not trying to make this a widespread known issue so other people then worry about it.
I was going to say.
However, I would have released some kind of... If I was Ubisoft, I would have released a press release saying, hey, this has happened to a few people, we're really sorry about it, and this is how we're going to deal with it. Everybody knows it's out there. Yes, people can then complain about it because people complain about everything. Of course they do. But it's then a bit more easier to swallow if suddenly you log on and you find out this has happened to you.
I was going to say, it should be in the logon text, like the little news things that pop up. Mm-hmm. That's where I'm surprised they didn't say a thing.
Yeah.
It's also sort of in the MMO sphere. It's the standard place where this type of thing gets said. Patch notes are talked about there.
Yep.
So it just seems like they avoided the natural, widespread communication avenue because they didn't want to reveal that they fucked up. And they fucked up, I mean, like, that this was a thing.
Yeah, I mean, this is a problem with Ubisoft all over with previous games. What was the not the last Ubisoft game that came out? The one before that, the one where the NPCs had no faces. They said nothing about it, and they sent out all of these games where there were these issues, and they can't say that no QA tester did not experience this, because a significant amount of people experienced, a certain kind of bug within a game. They just swept it under the carpet, didn't say anything, and just worried about it when people started to complain about it.
The PR...
Had they been a bit more upfront about it and said, look, we know this is a problem and we're working out a way to deal with this. But then I suppose they don't want people to not buy the game until it's dealt with. They don't want to fuck with week one, day one sales of a game, because everything revolves around money. Everything revolves around money. So everything revolves around...
But it's not day one sales, right? Like, this is a month on.
Well, for the Division it is, yes, but for previous games it was issues from day one. But it's just highlighting that Ubisoft don't have a very good way of communicating with the people who play their games.
I think it's not that they don't have a good way, it's that they haven't bothered to develop a community-oriented perspective.
Mm.
It's very much CYA, cover your ass.
Yeah.
Like that's their mantra. And because of that, we find ourselves where we're at, where it's like, yeah, these people have this problem, so I'll try and say this in a way that doesn't alarm anyone, but also just makes those people even more pissed. Like, my point of view on this is that, yes, there'll be people who are always pissed. I didn't get to play my game. It should be perfect. Fuck you. And I don't care about those people.
Yeah, no. I mean, It's partly down to the culture that we now inhabit, isn't it? That everyone complains about everything. If things don't work perfectly, people are very, very quick to jump on that, and they're not very forgiving in the sense that it's technology. It's an always online game. You have to take your data from a server. Things can go wrong. Of course they can.
Yeah.
But people think, well, I paid this money. This should always work at all times, irrelevant of the technology that's used to be able to do what I want it to do, or what it's saying that it's going to be able to do.
Why didn't the Titanic have an extra hull? Should have.
Technology, mate. Yeah. Cost cutting, perhaps.
Cost-benefit analysis, I would say. My inner economist is
possibly. Shall we finish it there for the week?
Yeah, I think so. I guess, I just wanted to sort of say that, excuse me, I get where people are coming from with the complaints, but I think that the only strong / complaints I can get behind are the ones that talk about how it just wasn't communicated well, because things do go wrong, and I hate to say it, but some people need to grow up and realize that things go wrong in the world.
Yep.
But I also think that the people, that's against the really whiny people who think that they should get some magic Uber backpack that'll lock them out of the game as compensation.
Special hat.
Yeah. But also Ubisoft needs to fucking grow up and take its hits.
Yeah.
You can't hide everything.
Completely.
And you know what? When you don't say, I screwed up right away, it will bite you in the ass. And I feel like, in a small respect, that's what's happening. I mean, I know some people on that forum quit. Like they actually asked Amazon for a refund.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Which is fine. If I was Amazon, I guess I would just give it because it's easier and there's like 0 people who are doing that. But I lost my train of thought. Yeah, it's just okay.
Yeah.
So Ubisoft did a shitty job of communicating that. You can whine about that, and then you need to move on.
Yeah,
and
completely.
Demanding extra things from a game you don't pay monthly fees, and I think that really does matter because you're not paying. Yes, my devil's advocate hat was on, and you can't play the game. Sort of strong sense can't play the game when your character's disappeared for a few days, but it's also just a few days.
Yes. There's lots of other things you can do during those few days. I think my final comment on the situation as a whole would just be wah.
Yeah.
So there you go. That's it. What was your beer of this week?
It is the Muskoka Mad Tom Unfiltered IPA.
Okay, the first one you had.
Yeah, I feel like I continued drinking the Howe Sound, Devil's Elbow, and it got a little more complex, but not a lot.
Yep.
That sort of strong sweetness became a little less sweet. I think it was just the strong bitterness that was lingering from the Muskoka.
Mm-hmm.
But it was still fairly thin flavor profile. Like it sort of didn't do anything differently throughout sipping it.
Yeah.
And for an IPA to live there and then have a really short finish is just weird.
Sure.
Like, at least some of the sort of more simple IPAs... God, I sound pretentious. I guess that's the name of the game, though. I've
talking about craft beer, mate. Of course you do.
Yeah. I usually have a longer finish, so whatever the taste is, it's lingered, and it lingers, so you can enjoy it, even if it's not something different than what you initially tasted. And this sort of just was... It's like a wham bam, I guess you were an IPA. Like, it just...
Yeah, no, that's fair. I'm also going with my first beer of this evening, the 3 C's Golden Ale. By Crossed Anchors Brewing. It was a good taste. It was a nice finish. The aroma and the taste were very similar. It had that really nice hoppy, citrusy flavour Not quite as hoppy as maybe an IPA would be. It's a bit lighter. You get a bit more of the malt through it. But that was nice. Whereas the Northern Star was, it's that winter seasonal beer. You walk into a pub in the middle of the winter.
Right.
Someone has a mulled wine. You have yourself a nice spiced beer. It was that kind of thing. So I think I was a little late to the party, about 3 months late to the party on this beer, really. The 3 C's Golden Ale was a very nice beer, Crossed Anchors Brewery. It was very enjoyable. Something I would have again, definitely.
Excellent.
So we have been tanked up for another week. You can obviously listen to all of our episodes where we talk about lots of different things, hot topics, as we did last week with our special guest Ross Miller from the Out of Lives Network, which we are a part of.
I was going to say.
Yeah. They have lots of other podcasts.
We have lots of other podcasts.
We have, yes, all right, fine, yes. We have lots of other podcasts that you can go and listen to. An entertainment podcast, Out of Lives, Out of Nowhere, the wrestling podcast, and Out of the Crossfire, which is a PlayStation-centric podcast. Ross has just launched, which he spoke about last week, the Xbox One Party Chat podcast, which if you're an Xbox player, you should probably go and listen to. He chats with people from the Xbox One subreddit about different things that are happening, different posts that have been made on the subreddit, and they also had an interview with Major Nelson. So for their first episode, that's quite a big deal.
Yeah, and part of that is, of course, because they are the official podcast of the Xbox One subreddit.
Yes.
If you want to contact us by the old email, you can reach us at either tankedupcast@gmail.com or if you have a general hard-on for emailing Out of Lives podcasts, you can also reach us at podcast@outoflives.net, along with all the other Out of Lives podcasts. You'll be surprised to know how share that address.
Completely. Just do a general email and speak to each podcast in turn if you listen to everybody. You can also get us on Twitter at tankedup_cast. Last week I said that Tanked Up on Twitter was held by a fish tank TV program. That's not true.
That's just the YouTube #1 hit, right?
Yes. Tanked Up is owned by a gentleman who has tweeted, I think, once in 2009.
Oh,
there you go. A little bit of backstory for you on the Tanked Up Twitter. So tweet him and tell him how good Tanked Up _cast
what the fuck
is.
is the point of tweeting someone who hasn't touched Twitter since 2009?
You can also go on our YouTube page to watch some of the absurd drunken videos that we've made, because we love beer and we love games. So we've made drunken videos, which is the thing to do. We also have a Facebook page, which we're posting to a little bit more these days.
What's our YouTube page? Tanked Up Cast?
I believe our YouTube page is just Tanked Up Cast, yes. Yeah. As it is on Facebook, I believe it's just Tanked Up Cast on Facebook as well. What
if I wanted to say something directly to you, Ben, about your weird perceptions of gaming and retribution? I meant recompense.
Just talk
I
to
meant recompense on outages, and I said retribution. Apparently, I'm secretly driving the whaambulance.
That's it. So I'm on Twitter at @over_47. Normally, my tweets consist of very nice screenshots from the PlayStation 4. That's pretty much all I tweet out, and then responses to people about other things. A couple of beers that I drink. You can go and see some fantastic shots I took of Journey.
Oh, excellent! I don't have
a couple of months ago. But
how's the PS4 version versus the PS3 version? Because you played
looks
both,
fucking
right?
Fantastic.
Because I have the PS3 version, but I'm really tempted to just not start it.
If you've got the PS3 version, you've also got the PS4 version. It is free.
Oh,
just go on and get it. Was it free? I'm pretty sure it was free. I wouldn't have paid for it again. So I'm pretty sure it was free.
On that bombshell, you can also get me on Twitter at the Omniarch. You can also add me on all of the gaming networks. That's your Xbones, your PSNs, your Steams at, you'll be surprised to know, the Omniarch. TheOmniarch.
Nice. If you want to get me on Steam, I've just joined the IGN UK Duck Hunters group, which Out of Lives spurred from, not the Steam group as such.
Spawned from, I think.
Spawned, yes, spawned. But yeah, I'm on Steam at Nova_47. Who stole my name? Because I essentially stole my name on a previous email address, which was slightly foolish. Anyway, we have been tanked up for another week. Take it easy, guys.
Ciao.
Basically, we have to say this is a disadvantage, and this is why. Because of this case from these people from 1984.
Aha! Apparently the issue is attached to a high-end backpack.